Cool. Thank you guys for joining once again. So this is a webinar hosted by Mighty Buildings, and our guest speaker is our installation partner, Eano.co. So we have founder and CEO of Eano, Stella Wu. Stella, say hi.
Hi, everyone. Good morning.
We have their project manager, Jean. From the Mighty Building side, we have our project manager, Zane.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, everyone will be participating in the, in the presentation and, the Q&A session. Again, thanks for being with us today. We're gonna talk about the ADU estimates during COVID. We kind of will go over, we'll introduce both companies. We'll talk about, why ADUs, where you can have an ADU. We'll talk about some, specific zoning for, we'll cover the San Jose area, and we could, answer questions about different areas as well. And then we'll go over, the differences between modular and traditional construction. We'll talk about estimates, because this is the, the key question all the time. We'll talk about what happens after permits, in terms of site preparation, delivery process, module installation, and why every project, is different, and why costs vary from project to project. And that's why sometimes it is hard to give you an exact number, how much it would cost in, in that specific area. And, at the end, we'll have a summary of the site cost structure. So maybe you can think about, where your specific project, falls into that, range and in terms of that breakdown. Cool. Let's move further. So Mighty Buildings is, some of you guys may actually know me, we've been around for about 3 years. We are a venture-backed company. We're currently based in Oakland. We moved a couple of months ago from, Redwood City location. We are growing, and we have a very huge industrial facility where we manufacture units. It's about 70,000, square feet warehouse. Everyone is, welcome to visit our, showroom. So we do, modular buildings. So we manufacture them off-site, and then we bring the units, to the location. We are backed by notable venture capital firms here in the Bay Area, such as Khosla Ventures, Bolt Capital Ventures, Y Combinator. We've raised so far over $36 million in, various rounds of funding. We completed 2 projects, one here in the Bay Area in San Ramon, one in San Diego. So we do cover the entire state of California. So all counties are eligible for, having, a Mighty Building, and we, do turnkey services throughout the state. We manufactured more than 5 units as of now. We've got over 5 permits approved, and we have 15 projects, under management. Yeah, next slide. Yeah, so here are a couple of, pictures of our completed projects. We started with pretty small structures. Those are the studio, the 350 square feet and 700 square feet, 1 bedroom, 1 bath. We do mostly ADUs as of now. Again, it's a turnkey service. Everything is, included in the package, and, interior finishes and, exterior touch-ups as well. And yeah, now Stella would introduce.
Oh, more.
Actually, yeah, I actually have a couple more words about the floor plans. We try to create the product line that includes all different sizes for all different, lot requirements. We have, again, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms. Yeah, so anything you guys could fit in your backyard should work. And yeah, Stella will introduce Eano.
Hello. So my name is Stella. I'm the CEO and founder at innovation.com. Now we switched the name to Eano.co. So we are a one-stop solution for ADU and remodeling services. And in the past, like last year, we already have about 80 remodeling and ADU projects, and we have completed over 20 projects in 2019. And then we are doing a lot of projects in San Jose, like Fremont and San Mateo, all this area, they're very popular for like ADU. A lot of people wanted to invest in this area for like ADU projects. So Gene is our GC that's helping to managing a lot of like ADU projects. So I invite him to this event. So he will be answering a lot the questions regarding like technical, like how you wanted to start, and also regarding the costing, like whether it's a good ROI for you to think of like the ADU, if it's a good ROI options for you. So he will be answering those questions. Yeah. So this is the past project that we have done in the 2019. If you look at the second project, it's the one like recent project in San Mateo. So the owner wants to convert their like old garage to a new garage and then rent it out. So that project is approximately like 90K for us, just for the labor costs. So you can have a sense like how the ADU like would cost around. And all others, like there's a kitchen remodeling, there's a one in San Jose, the kitchen remodeling, and like bathroom remodeling and kitchens. So we covered it all. But this event, we're gonna focusing a lot on like the ADU build.
Cool. I mean, a lot of people ask, why, we should build an ADU or why we should not. So some of the benefits of, building an ADU, I mean, first you're definitely creating an extra living space, on your property. You are investing, in your property. And honestly, during, coronavirus, probably a lot of us actually realized how, small our houses are, and maybe everyone kind of wished you had, a little backyard, a studio or a one bedroom just to have maybe an office space or again, just some, extra nook, on your land. ADUs increase the property value by around 30%. There were some studies done by University of Oregon, and we can share, more information in that regards. It's definitely a higher ROI than, traditional remodel. Remodel probably bring about, 18% increase in the property value, again, versus 30% of, if you add doing an addition to your property. And it creates, potential rental income. So it's a revenue stream, the unit eventually pays itself off. The payback period depends obviously on the square footage and, the scope of the project, but usually it's about, 7 to 12 years. For 12 years is for the larger buildings, like 1,200 square feet. And if we have some, real estate agents here on the webinar, if you have listings and the client is purchasing a house, they can actually purchase an ADU and include it in the same deal. So it does increase, the mortgage eventually, but if they rent out an ADU, they could cut the mortgage maybe in half with the 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom models. So it's a great solution for clients to make housing more affordable. And that's, one of the missions of, our company, for example. And to chat a little bit about, the regulations and what made, ADUs applicable and like more popular in the past year. Zane, if you could move to the next slide.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I'll jump in onto this. So there were some major law changes that happened at the beginning of this year. Towards the end of last fall, the Governor Newsom actually ended up signing a number of different bills that really opened up ADU regulations statewide. For the most part, they standardized the ADU regulations in terms of setbacks, law coverage requirements, and a number of other very important things. The most important being that any residential property now is allowed to have an ADU plus a converted space JADU as well. If you're on a multifamily property, you're now allowed at least 2 detached ADUs, as well as being able to convert up to 25% of the available space into additional units. Another very important new law that came into effect this year was if the units were under 750 square feet, they did not include for impact fees or lot coverage requirements, pretty much making it if your unit could fit on your property and was under 750 square feet, it could go there no matter what. One last one that was added in was that HOAs have to allow ADUs in some shape or form. So they still may be able to put in some type of design requirement or limitations in square footages, but before they were able to just directly tell you no, and now every residential property has to be allowed to have an ADU. Now, just to kind of go into a little bit more specific for what I was saying, this is like an example of San Jose. So San Jose was actually able to go further than the state law, reducing their setbacks down to only 3 feet. That being said, there is a fire trigger to have fire sprinklers if you're within 5 feet. So we always say you're probably going to want to be within 3 to 5 feet setback, depending on what you're trying to save on your cost of your build. The other one about it is that the state law has a limit to 1,000 square feet for a 2-bedroom ADU. San Jose actually has a cool rule which increases that limit to 1,200 for larger lots. There are one other major restriction that people need to be aware about when trying to figure out their ADU, and that's this one, the structure separation. This varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. In San Jose, it's 6 feet, but it could go anywhere up to 12 feet depending on where you are. And that is kind of one of the major things that will prevent an ADU at this point with the new laws. Now, Jin's going to step in real quick and kind of talk about the different, talk about traditional builds and what kind of makes them good, as well as what, the challenges they face.
Hello, everyone. So compared to modular traditional build, it gives you more flexibility on how you wanted to build your ADU. You can choose, you are not limited on the size. You can choose 300, 400, 500, 600, etc. to build in your ADU. And you can customize the material to be more high-end finish, or customize floor plan, or you can choose cheaper material to, if you want to rent the property or have a purpose to do that. So the total turnaround time for building an ADU will be around 4 to 7 months. Some city the inspection will come very sooner, so you will be able to turn around the ADU faster. But for city of San Jose, usually they give you 1 week of time before the inspector gonna come out. So that will be delayed a little bit for the transaction. So 4 months to 7 months will be the turnaround time for traditional ADU.
While you're working with a module builder, a lot of that construction is happening off-site and can actually happen as permits are being finalized, making your on-site construction time usually around less than a month. That being said, you're going through the same permitting phases, and the big trade-off is with that increase in time, you're not able to customize your unit as much. While we are able to customize finishing materials to an extent, a lot of your layouts and floor plans have to be within our pre-approved factory-built housing plan sets. In either case, we're providing a turnkey solution though, which allows people to not have to go through a single individual and not have headaches.
Hold on. The slice is still freeze. I think we're going to the next slide. Right?
No, that's a later slide. But yeah, in either case, we're providing a turnkey solution. Now to kind of go into a little bit about how estimates work for our units, we're going to be going over one of our 700 square foot units, and we'll be going into a little bit more case study specifically later on. We would end up in both cases with traditional or module build, these initial costs for permits as well as getting your entitlement documents together are going to be fairly similar. In some cases, you'll be able to find a cheaper architect to give you a cheaper design and things like that. So you might be able to reduce your entitlements costs a little bit, but a permit for a 700 square foot building, whether it's modular or traditional, is going to be the same permit costs, as most permits are being calculated by square footage nowadays. The things that are going to vary are going to be your foundation and utility costs, as that's all that happens on site with a module build. The rest of your build is going to be very set in place, and then your actual delivery. With modules, unfortunately, you do need large equipment, such as a crane to do your installation. So that ends up being a large additional cost to your project. Now compare this to traditional builds.
Yeah, for traditional build, you can simply separate it to 3 different parts. First one is the permit part. You have to hire an architect to do your drawing and then engineer stamp before submitting to the city. That will cost you about $7,000 to $12,000 for the first part. And then you get into building the actual ADUs, and rough material plus labor together running from 250 to 300 per square feet. And that's all including all the work in the box, such as foundation, subfloor plumbing, insulation, framing, roof deck, electrical, etc., etc. So that's the second part. The third part will be finish materials for the interior remodel. So that's up to you to choose how you want the interior to be look. It could be a little bit expensive. It could be cheaper. It's running anywhere from 20,000 to 50,000. It depends what kind of material you wanted to put in the interior. Somebody like to do high-end flooring and molding all around, so that will increase your cost. And again, the turnaround time will be 4 months to 7 months for the entire project. So you have to literally add the three part together to give you a grand total to give you an idea how much the total cost will be for doing this ADU. But as we are a one-stop solution. We can provide all three part services, and we can get that done easily for you. So that's from traditional build.
One thing I wanted to add on what Jean say is that this is limited to like the detached ADU and also like pretty limited to Bay Area, because I see a lot of like attendees there from LA or San Diego. Those prices, like for what we also have like the projects in LA. The LA the prices, it's actually like way lower than the Bay Area, unfortunately, and also like San Diego is pretty similar to like the Bay Area. So what you can see the labor cost is basically the detached ADU type, which means we build everything from ground up, like we including the roof, all those kind of things. So if you are doing like garage convert to ADU, you already have the frame and roof, the cost will be cheaper. And also the ADU permit as well, like that including the structures. But if you do like a junior ADU, then it will be much less cost. So when you do the comparison, what we listed here is just an example, but it's very case by case. The type of building, your primary home, the location, the draining, the electric, everything will be very different. Yeah,
it's actually a really good thing Stella brought that up. All the pricing that we are providing today is based off Bay Area estimates. Areas that have cheaper labor or less expensive labor. Yes. Will have a lower cost for their foundation and utility trenching for our projects as well. In general, it's just a little cheaper to build in Southern California than it is in Northern California currently. Mm-hmm. So in both our solutions, as I mentioned earlier, we're using some form of either previously approved or a actually pre-stamped plan to be able to get permits faster through set layouts. Granted, if you were to do a custom build, this would be a little bit longer in the permitting end. But if you were able to do a previously approved plan set from Eano or one of our factory built pre-approved, pre-stamped plans from Mighty Buildings, the permitting time gets heavily reduced. We end up doing all of your work. And actually one thing that I think we forgot to mention at the beginning of the presentation is actually Eano is one of our licensed installers. So they actually do the installations for our projects as well. So, we end up having a single person going through a single entity for a turnkey solution at the very end. So now we're going to kind of go over about what happens after permits. I'm going to first talk about the things that are going to be the same, whether you're doing a traditional build versus a module build. Then I'll show you about what happens during the module installation. And then Jin will be going over, the different phases of construction that happen during traditional builds. So in either case, you're going to be building a structural foundation. In this case, with our units, we generally use slab on grades, but we're able to do any type of foundation type, whether that's piers, stem wall with a crawl space, anything like that. It just changes the pricing depending on what type of foundation you're doing. The unique thing with module versus a traditional build on a foundation is going to be something like this, which is the connections. In ours, we embed metal plates to weld our units to the foundation. And that's going to be the only unique thing in this stage for module. The other thing that happens in both cases is that there is trenching on your property to pull utility lines to connect to existing utilities. For instance, in this case, we are connecting to your sewer lateral or your electrical box, and then pulling it to the unit and then connecting to the unit. The connections to the unit's one of the final things that happen, but with the module, there's not really a whole lot of other steps, so it's just easy to show here. So this is kind of what happens unique with a module build, is that as we're doing all these phases on your property, the unit's being built in our facility. Once it's ready, it gets transported on a lowboy semi-truck to your property, and then gets craned over the house into the backyard. And this is what I was talking about earlier about the need for heavy equipment costs of a crane. And that's what we need to actually pick up the unit and put it onto the foundation. In some cases, you'd be able to use something like a jack and lift, but with those, you would need at least 16 feet access, as our modules are 14 feet wide. So a lot of time, it's just easier to use the crane for this installation. The cool thing about this though, is once it's installed, your actual date, there's very minimum work left to happen on the site. They just put in the steps to the unit, do the utility connections, and ideally it could actually happen in a single day. Generally, it ends up taking about a week for installation for a studio unit. Now you can compare this to traditional, which Jen was going to go over.
Yeah, for traditional workflow, I'm just going to show you how this how to build from ground. So Modular was showing a tape-out foundation called concrete slab. So now I'm showing you about the crawl space foundation. So as you can see on the picture one, we are lifting the house to create a space in the bottom, so people can crawl down there to fix plumbing, to install electrical whenever you want to do in the bottom later on. If your plumbing has a problem later, we can also crawl down there to get an easy repair. So picture two, we set up the framing and do some connection with the primary house. And then picture three, all the framing is up already, window doors installed already. So we also install the wires, the lighting, the plumbing fixture inside of the wall to get everything inside of the wall done before closing. And then picture four will be installation, picture five will be closing after everything finished. The next step will be painting, painting the wall to do a finish inside of the wall. Page. And now want to show you some exterior finish. So like picture number two, we have to do chicken wires on the wall to be able to do the exterior finish. So there's many type of customization on the exterior finish. You can do like picture three, install stone on the wall. So that's how it's going to be look like for stone look. And then picture 4 or 5 will be a stucco look. You can also choose texture stucco or flat finish. And picture 6 will be siding. So you pretty much nail in all the wooden board to create a style like we call that siding. So you can do all those customization for traditional build. Next page, please. And this are the pictures for the interior finish. Again, you can do a whole lot of customization on the bathroom and the kitchen. Right here, I just bring you some three pictures for the lighting, the cabinetry, the quartz countertop, backsplash, all the way to the ceiling. Just want to show you how the kitchen will be customized in any way, any style that you want. So yeah, that's the customization for remodel for the traditional build.
Cool. Now we're going to go into a quick case study for a specific case. So this is for our 700 square foot unit, which is 2 modules. So there is going to be some additional costs you're going to see in delivery because of that. And this is actually for a site in San Diego. The previous model I was showing you guys was actually our site in San Ramon, which is up in the Bay Area. So some of the labor was a little bit cheaper. That being said, ended up not being as less expensive for this site specifically as it would be for other sites in Southern California. So the Duo B cost starts at $135,000 currently. From there, we do a site feasibility report to start off all of our projects at a cost of $1,000. This will allow us to give you guys a lot of upfront information about the project and the cost of the projects initially. Then we were able to go over and get the supporting docs for entitlements for this project. On this project, we needed a little bit more than your traditional architectural package, and structural package. We also were required to get a historical preservation study, as well as a geotechnical report, which ended up increasing their entitlements cost a little bit to $16,000. His building permit was about $10,000, just over by a couple hundred. The foundation for his site was about $14,000 due to the additional compaction he would needed for his soil because he had very soft soil. From there, we had about $15,000 of utility connections, and that's because utilities are calculated by linear footage. Generally, it's about $45 a square foot, but it can vary from area to area. And we were having to pull from the front yard all the way over for sewer, and then water from here. So there was quite a lot of trenching involved with this site. Lastly is the on-site labor. This is a little bit more expensive because it was two modules that were put together, and then they have to do the finishing materials where the connection happened. So for our smaller studio unit, it comes 100% completed, but our Duo B unit ends up being closer to about 98% completed when it comes to site. The truck delivery was also a little bit more expensive because it was going all the way down to San Diego. Normally it's about $3,000 a module, so it'd be about $6,000 for Bay Area projects, but due to the extraditions, it ended up being about $8,000. Finally, the crane installation was about $10,000 for the crane. The crane doesn't generally get more expensive if you're doing more modules. It's usually just initial cost to rent the crane itself. The total cost of this project ended up being about $225,000, just under. Now, Jin's going to be going over one of their projects to kind of give you a 500 square foot smaller custom build.
Yes, so we have a client actually contacting us for properties. They wanted to buy a property actually on market right now. So we did a case study for this property. So they have a low budget. So we come out a plan with 500 square feet addition in the backyard. So as you can see, this is the main house with the white box, and then the black box is the actual ADU gonna be happening. And then for this lot size, it's 5,000 square feet lot size. We can be able to build the ADU up to 800 square feet, but I don't think you want to build to 800 square feet because anything past 750 will have an impact fee. So that's why we give them a design for 500 square feet ADU in the backyard. This property is in the city of Fremont, so the setback rule is 5 feet away from the fence. So every city has a different setback rule. So San Jose is 3 feet. We just mentioned that already. So we have to check the rules, depends on which city you are in. So for this typical property, 500 square feet detached ADU, the first part designing will be 6,500 for the architectural design. The second part is building the ADU. The material and labor together will be costing you $110,000 for building the ADU. And then third part will be the interior remodel, and that will give you a $25,000. So your total cost will be $141,500 for the total. And then that's how it's gonna look like. The picture will show you in the backyard, and then the exterior just pretty much the basic finish with the siding, and then composition 30 years life roof. And then the interior remodel will be just a clean look with the laminate floor, basic cabinet, and then one color pen for everywhere to give you a clean look. So that's how much exactly gonna cost to build a 500 square feet ADU for this case.
Just for people like the agents out there, like we're partnered with like some agent that some of the client, they wanted to invest, buy a property and rent it out, but they wanted to know like what's the prospect cost, construction cost. So they're giving us this kind of deal, and then we help them to create case study. So also some tips for people who wanted to buy a property and wanted to rent it out. There's a few tips you need to look at. Like when you build the ADUs, you wanted to check what's the maximum, the things you can build out, because there is a marginal cost whenever you do the ADU, like 200 square feet versus like 700 square feet. The cost per square feet actually varies a lot, because like when you build like 500, when you build like 200, it might be like a 400 per square feet. But like when you build like a way bigger, it's actually way cheaper because we have a marginal cost when we move all the things there. So that's something you keep in mind. And also like-
Real quick, before you go on to your next point, just to build off what you were saying, with those new state laws, you're allowed for a 1-bedroom unit up to 850 square feet statewide, no matter what the laws are. You might be able to go even beyond that. And if it's a 2-bedroom unit, you can go up to 1,000 square feet. So you know, you can really max out these properties a lot. It's a really big, you know?
Yes, for the renting, I would recommend people to max out, but also thinking about when you're selling the house, you don't want to max out too much, and then your house value is like 50% more than your neighborhoods. Then by the time when you sell the house, it's getting really hard to sell out. So when you build the ADU, try to think long term, like short term, like rental, and also like when you're trying to resell it, is it gonna hard to get rid of it if it's gonna add too much cost on it? So each case is different. Feel free to ask us, and Natalie and Zine, about like the specific things you want to talk about. We can go to.
Well, I think we have a lot of questions waiting for us. I think I'm just going to start going down the list, and I'll just read them, and you know, if it's whatever we think. Lynette from California, I spoke to you about curious about plumbing and turnaround times. Lynette, I believe you're talking to us directly. Are you? Lynette, could you message in the chat if you were trying to talk to Mighty Buildings or Eano on this question? Because
Mighty Buildings, I remember, Lynette, yeah.
if it's us, then turnaround time is about 4 to 6 months from moment of signing contract with us. The plumbing for our units are all within the unit built on off-site. The actual connections are very straightforward. They're just on the side of the unit that plug and play. Can your ADUs be put over a parking area? What is the issues that this would bring up? If you're talking about putting it over a garage, Mighty Building units cannot do that, but you are more than welcome to do a custom build like that. When I used to be a permit expediter, I actually did quite a few projects like that. It's a really good way to make a good efficiency of your space. Yep. Feel free to reach out to Eano for that. If you're talking about just a general like parking space, it depends. You have to make sure you have the necessary parking requirements for the amount of dwellings in your property. Granted, a lot of time you might have more than what's necessary, and if that's the case, you could take away parking. I also see a lot of people putting questions in the chat. If you could please put them into the Q&A section so we can keep a better track of what we've answered and they don't get lost, that'd be very helpful.
Yeah. And meanwhile, I'm trying to answer some of the questions in the chat just to kind of help people navigate, because I doubt we will be able to go over all the 60. But let's try to make
as we go, but yeah, there's a lot. Okay. I'm going to skip over this one because I'm not sure what they mean. Do you lend yourself over to custom studio designs? I know that's directed at us because just of how it's orientated. We do not have an in-house architecture partner. All of our designs were actually done through different architect partners. So our Mighty Houses were done through EREC. I'm blanking on who did our studio designs. And then we've been approached by a couple other firms who are interested in doing their own model through us. If that's something that you're interested in, please message Natalie or me directly. Our info@mightybuildings.com email actually goes to either one of us, so feel free to just reach out.
I'll reply right away, guys. So please message with any questions. And by the way, if we don't happen to answer any of them, just shoot us an email and we'll get back to you.
So I see a couple questions about costs per square footage. As I think we've kind of gone over that, it definitely varies a lot from site to site, as well as what you're trying to get out of your finishes. So I think we've tried to do our best to kind of cover what your baseline costs are, and then the rest is kind of up to you or what you're required to do.
Yeah, there's a 3-part, like permits, design, and also like construction, and also finishing material for us. But Mighty Building is kind of like everything, and then we're just like foundation part, like there's
also beyond that, before you even get to permits, there's a variance of the type of documents you're going to need. Like not every jurisdiction you're going to need to get a soil report for, and that's $3,000 to $5,000 right there. Yeah. So it really it varies from site to site dramatically. So it's kind of hard to give a actual cost per square footage number.
If you want to know, just reach out to us. It's a free consultation, so why not?
Reach out. We can let you know what it is for your specific property. Do you have a parking area that's also specified when you installing ADU? So Mick, I believe your question is probably going to go towards the parking exemption. If you're nearby public transit, within a half-mile of walking distance, you will not need to add in additional parking requirements. If that's the case, in some jurisdictions, you will need additional parking, and others you may not. Also, what those parking requirements are going to vary from place to place. It's just funny, I showed the San Diego project, and I was just talking about this yesterday. For instance, a normal parking stall is about 8 by 10 feet in most jurisdictions. In San Diego, it's 8 by 16 feet because it has to fit a boat. So, it depends from where you are. Natalie, do you have any more information on the increase in value?
Yeah, Brian Larson, I can send you this study from the University of Oregon, how they came up with this 30% increase in the property value, because they actually have a bigger amount of ADUs built in the past 5 years. So yeah, I'm happy to share that study with you.
So this question is a very good one because it kind of directly relates to our main topic of doing this during COVID. So initially, when we all started dealing with this, cities were closing down and not allowing for permits to continue. But with the new order that went in at the beginning of May, all construction was allowed to pick up again. And with that, cities have slowly been coming back. In the most cases, unless you have like a very special jurisdiction, they're accepting permits again through some form of online submittal or by appointment, social distancing safe, counter submittals.
Next.
Next.
Radio, are those just for the building structure itself or electric? Yeah, for us, it's including the rough materials. We include the rough materials and the labors. And the finishing part, like the toilet, the vanity, all those are finishing material. Those are the customer pick them, or we provide a material package. Then the third part of the cost.
Cool. For us, our building cost has all the major plumbing, sewer, and electrical inside of it, but the actual hookups are part of that utilities line item that I showed. That would be the actual connections to the utilities as well as the trench lining.
Yep.
I want to buy a rental home. Which city is nice? It's the most nice to do it. I would say probably one of the best cities in the Bay is San Jose to do ADU, just because of their really quick permitting process. You could probably get a permit in about a week. For Southern California, I'm a real big fan of LA City for the same reason. You can get a permit in one day in LA City. Do you guys have any other cities that you've worked with that you really like?
I mean, San Jose is really like the city is really loosened about the code. So I mean, but to be honest, like I feel you shouldn't like rely on the cities because it's also like a lot of things you need to consider. It's about the property, to be honest. Like if there's a tree, then the trees make it really hard, and then the all eyes. Since you are doing the rental, you should look at all the numbers before you buy the property. See if the foundation has an issue. See if there's a tree blocking and make it extra cost. Then it doesn't matter what city. It's about the property you're buying.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. It really depends on the other elements, not necessarily the city. There are definitely some cities that are harder that you might want to consider if you're planning to do a dual rental property like that. But for the most part, it's a lot of the other elements. Your soil is a big thing. You want good soil so you don't have to put a lot of money into your foundation.
Exactly. It's all about numbers. Don't buy a property if you're not making good ROI on that. What site plan or other development services do you
I think we're just talking about the general permit packages. So we have a number of network consultants that we work with to get our site-specific packages, but we don't really need that much because of our pre-approved plan sets. Our actual permit package is only being usually around 6 pages long. What about you guys?
We have like an in-house like architect that does all the like permit services. So the clients come to us, we take care of entire permit processes, like including dressing the comments, all those things. So that's what we do. And then we have like internal sync up. So before we get the permit, our architect actually work with Gene, like our GC, to get all the materials ready to facilitate the entire process. And we have like, actually Gene is one of our GC. We have actually 15 GC around the Bay Area that does that construction, so.
So the next question is about design for permit approval. I mean, I think it's the cost of it. It depends on what you're trying to do. For ours, it's pretty set. Like, it's going to vary from like usually $12,000 to $20,000 for us because, it's really about the supporting documents because our designs are predetermined. I mean, you're more welcome to speak on it, but I feel like the sky's the limit when it comes to custom designs.
Yeah, I think like I see a lot of like design firms, sometimes they can get like, they charge like a percentage of the design, like a really custom home, they can charge like up to like 20, 30,000. For us, we are more focusing on the standardized packages type, like the single family home, like not really like those Sang Hero customized homes. So our price is a pretty like, I think around 6,000 to 9,000. And if you like, since we already have approved a plan like in San Jose, so if you get those like detached ADU, we can actually lower, but that's the baseline around there.
So I got one question here about, and I'm hoping they got mixed up minimum with maximum because the minimum size for any ADU statewide is 200 square feet, not 1,200. And the maximum you'll ever see anywhere is 1,200. So I think that's what they meant there.
Like minimum.
Yeah. We have a single family home and a large mixed residential.
The new law allows
Attached garage will allow us to convert the garage into a studio and build another ADU on the property. I'm actually not 100% positive on this. If it's a detached garage, would it count as a detached ADU after being converted? I think so. Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I think if you did convert the garage, it would be counted as your main ADU, not a JADU because it's detached. And a JADU needs to be attached.
Yes.
That's kind of nuancy. So I would suggest talking to your local planning department because they might, interpret the rule a little differently.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, codes are up to interpretation. So it's up to who's ever, snapping your plans up, giving you the approval.
Yes. Yes. For this boundary, how do you
Treated an appraisal.
Wait.
Question just disappeared. So I just saw one about property appraisals. I don't know where it went, but with ADUs, they just add direct value of the ADU to the property appraisal. They don't reappraise the property. So you shouldn't have to worry about going through a reappraisal. That being said, it will increase your property tax probably by about $1,000 a year.
Yeah, like I said, but don't build the ADU too big that you way like over your neighborhood's price, because people, if one day have that much money, they'll probably get another area. So keep a balance there when you
and also like things to consider on sizing is like I always bring up the 750 square foot rule because impact fees can be like easily $20,000 to $50,000 depending on where you are. So it is a massive savings staying under 750 square feet versus even adding 1 square foot more.
Mm-hmm.
Thane, can you touch base on the estimates for the foundation for, a steep slope? There are a couple of questions about that.
So it's really hard to determine that until after you get a soils report. So when you're dealing with a slope, there's only 2 methods you can, or I guess technically 3. Either you're cutting away from the slope to create a pad, or you're filling in the slope to create a pad through retaining walls, or you're doing some type of pier stem wall that's uneven to adjust the slope. And what this is determined by is how far they have to dig or how much they have to fill in to create that even surface. And that's determined by your soil itself and where the bedrock is underneath the soil. So the first thing you're going to do is get a soils report. And honestly, anyone who has a severe slope, I think you should get a topo survey and a soils report before even starting your search for a project, because it will save you a lot of time and a lot of, give you a lot more accurate estimates straight right away when you're dealing with your architect or structural engineers or with us, as they'll be able to use that information to determine how deep they would have to go. And it could really range dramatically. For instance, while this was not with Mighty Buildings, in my previous venture, I had a ADU project where they had to do 80-foot deep pylons and it ended up being a ridiculous cost. But at the same time, I've seen sites that are on hills and they only have to go 8 feet deep.
I wanted to quickly touch base on the earthquake resistant part. Yeah, so Mighty Buildings completed all the necessary tests and requirements. Actually, in our modular units, we have a steel frame at the core of the structure. So it is very, I think it's about 9.0.
Yeah, I wanted to actually, I'm happy you brought that back up because I would remembered that question. Our units are actually full steel. We have incredible safety for like earthquake resistance and fire resistance. Yeah, we really don't use very much wood at all in our units.
There were a couple of questions about, estimates for, Los Angeles and Orange County. Guys, we can talk to Ina and maybe do another webinar in a couple of weeks targeted specifically to Los Angeles and Orange County. So let's do that. Meanwhile, if you want, detailed price ranges, please email, any of us, and yeah, we'll get back to you on that. So there was a question. We actually will send, the recording of this webinar, and we'll send the presentation. Some people were referring to specific slides that something was not presented. So modular pricing estimates were on one slide, and traditional estimates with the total project cost were on the other slide. So yeah, it was both, covered. We have a question again about the foundation. Sorry, the concrete that is already on the property, and can we use it as a foundation? Then can you explain?
Well, unfortunately, with our module units, because of how we embed the plates to do our connections, we can't really save a foundation pad. I know with like converted spaces, you might be able to save the footings. I mean, maybe Jen can go more into this about traditional construction.
Yeah, so usually we cannot use the old foundation because the current code is, changed a lot. The houses built many years ago, so the foundation is not up to code anymore. So once you build new ADUs, you have to meet with the new code. So usually we just tear off. Even though you can use the foundation, you have to get an engineer to prove that. So you have to dig to see anyway. So why don't you just break it and then do a new foundation anyways, right?
Yeah. By the way, I just remembered, and I'm doing it right now. I'm launching another poll for everyone to answer. If you guys could kindly answer. One of the questions is also if you're interested in either traditional builds or module builds for one of us to be able to follow up with you guys. So please, give us some answers on there. How long does the ADU if you have it the traditional way? I think we've covered this. It's generally about 4 to 7 months construction time. You'll also have a similar permitting time of like 2 to 4 months, depending on where you are. Do you work with outside architects? Oh, so many questions.
We work with outside architects, yes. Zane, do you remember on top of your head the rare setback in Los Angeles County?
Well, it used to be 5 feet. It's still going to be 5 feet for fire safety for the fire sprinklers, as I mentioned before. But with the new state law, statewide, the setbacks have been reduced to 4 feet. The only cases it will not be 4 feet if it's less than 4 feet.
Yeah, so can you compare manufactured homes and modular? What's the differences?
So I answered this question at the beginning in the chat, but just to kind of go into a little bit more detail about it, manufactured homes are regulated through HUD, which is a federal agency, and then that means they follow federal code, which means they aren't necessarily up to California building code to 100%, and they're actually purposed to be temporary homes. While module is through different statewide programs. Here in California, we call it the Factory Built Housing Program. And that means it gets reviewed and inspected through a California licensed inspector or a plan reviewer service, and then is approved and pre-stamped by HCD, which is the Housing Community Department of California. And HCD is actually the agency that regulates all of these new statewide mandated ADU laws. So they are very connected to the ADU market as well as regulating and making sure that all these cities are following the rules. So in general, I kind of like to say is like manufactured homes are meant to be temporary spaces, while modules are meant to become real estate the same way as a traditional build. Essentially, the moment it's installed, it's treated exactly the same as if you would build traditionally.
Yeah, so we had a couple of questions if the modular showroom is open during COVID. Yes, guys, we use some precautions measures. So we have using, gloves and masks, but yes, you can come and tour one of the buildings. We have several types on the display. So I just posted the link to schedule a tour if someone is interested. Someone was asking about the multiple unit property. So how many ADUs they can have?
So you can have at least 2 detached ADUs, plus you can convert up to 25% of the existing units into a converted space, but you can't take away, it's kind of complicated how that works, that you can't take away current units. You have to convert areas like storage rooms, boiler rooms, spaces that are not connected to the current tenants. So you're able to add quite a bit to some properties, but for the most part, you're at least allowed 2 units. And this means in an area that you have a duplex, you can create your duplex into pretty much a 4-plex. Actually, a 6-plex, because you can also have two JADUs.
Then can you cover the impact fees and what it means that, if you build below 750, like how much approximately you can save?
So impact fees vary dramatically from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, but you do get a hefty savings. There are things such as the one that people understand the most is school fee, because every jurisdiction has school fee, but they could also be things like highway dedications, park dedication fee, road and community development fee, housing development fee. I know in LA they have, or in Glendale, California, they have one that's called an arts fee, and it's 1% of your valuation of the project that goes towards the arts. So they're just a general fees to improve the community. And they put them on homeowners to do these community improvements through that. They generally are ridiculously extra because they're calculated through costs per square footage. For instance, school fees will range from $2.50 to $4 per square foot to go towards schools. So that means, and I've done calculations for 850 square feet in San Mateo. Let's go up actually a little bit better. 1,200 square feet in San Mateo County ends up having about $40,000 in impact fees, while their actual permit fee is only $10,000. So that is about 5 times the cost of the permit fee and just impact fees. And you can generally expect 3 to 4 times what your permit cost would be to be additional impact fees.
So there's a question that says, is there a warranty for the ADUs? Yes, there's warranty for ADUs. Industrial warranty is, by law, you have to give a 10 years warranty for any construction work.
Yeah, we also have the basic construction warranty of 10 years plus a 1-year fit and finish warranty.
Yeah.
I saw...
Zane, do you mind if, there's one question about the separate utility lines, and I feel like it's a pretty important issue to cover.
When I saw it, I lost it. I'm glad you pointed it out to me. So the other part about that is there's 2 things to that question. First, all ADUs will end up having its unique address. It is a separate dwelling, so it has its own address. The second part about that is the separate utility costs. So while costs are hard to determine because they vary from just district to district, it is quite costly to add separate utility lines. What we generally do is tap into the existing to kind of save those costs. But if it's something that you were willing to invest into, it usually is about $20,000 to $40,000 to have a new water meter, sewer meter, and electrical meter.
There are a lot of questions about moving ADU, like modular ADU after it's been placed on the foundation, how much it would cost and like how feasible it is. Guys, we like to say that in construction, everything is possible. It's just a matter of cost. If we're willing to drop, a couple of grand, a couple of hundred of thousands of dollars. So yeah, everything is feasible, but very depends on your site, very depends on conditions. We would not recommend it. You probably better buy a house somewhere else.
No, okay, so it's the same process as it would be to move your own house. And I've done permits for this once before. It's ridiculous. Don't even think about it. Just buy a new house. Like I've done this once, and it was because the guy wanted to own both properties and he wanted to take one out of his view.
Yeah, and let's do the last questions because we guys are running out of time. But again, you're more than welcome to email us. We will reply to all the questions.
Yes.
So the last question is, can you get a permit for a modular unit without a home in the same lot? So I guess the question is more broad, like, can you build an ADU first and then build a house? Can we talk a little about it?
So, yes and no. So it's kind of complicated because it's a permitting question, really. So if you were to submit the plans at the same time, you could have it as an ADU and then the single family house later on. And with the idea that the ADU will be built first and then the single family house is going to take longer. But if you wanted to like build an ADU, wait some time and then build a main house, then it would be building a single family home under the permits, then doing a second single family home and converting one into an ADU. So the ADU always is an accessory to your main house. So if you have an empty lot and you do it at the same time, you can do them both and have built this accessory dwelling first. But if you were to do one, then the next, it would have to be single family house, then accessory dwelling unit.
There's one more question I want to go over is any solution to get things move faster during this COVID-19? I think Stella, you want to answer this question?
Oh, that one. I mean, right now, a lot of things we just like from like online, like virtual. We do virtual appointments to move faster, and for the current projects that we do like online submitting to arrange the appointment, the inspection appointment as early as possible. So, and also like we're trying to like send like a few people's and also outside the house. So right now, if like for families that have like elder people in the house and like interior remodeling, we don't open to that. But if you are building the ADU like outside of your area, and then that's something we are working on it.
We also have an app that you can see real-time construction steps. So just say you pass the first inspection, it will show into the process, and you can see that on your phone. We are doing that right now.
Yeah, so during this time, a lot of people can rent out another place. They live outside, and then we have a real-time app to give the updates. So you don't need to come home to check the process, and then you just like line home and then check the app.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. Cool, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining the webinar. It was a pleasure to having our guest speakers from Eano. We'll look forward to hosting, another event sometime soon. We looked at some topics that, people wanted to go over. We'll make sure we can have them, covered in the future.